video, I'm going to be going over some of the differences between my Gretsch and my National Resonator guitars. I'm going to talk about some of the differences in the spec, build quality, overall feel of the instruments. I'm going to do some sound demos as well and just give you some food for thought if you're looking to purchase a resonator, what my opinion is on whether it's worth it to spend the extra money on something like a National versus the more budget-friendly Gretsch. I'm going to preface this, address the elephant in the room here. So my Gretsch is a single cone version and the National is a tricone. There's going to be very big differences in the overall sound and the style between the two, so you'll have to keep that in mind. I'm going to try my best to isolate that though and, make this about just the characteristics of a more boutique model and a budget model. And so this is not, what's better, tricone versus single cone. That can be another video. In terms of build quality, craftsmanship, no surprise, the National definitely has the edge here, and it definitely is a noticeable feeling of quality. And it feels like a really nice, boutique level instrument. The tuning is super stable. The intonation and everything for a resonator is really good. I know it can never really be perfect, but it's never been an issue. It's overall just a really well-made instrument. You definitely get, I think what you pay for, and it's definitely, I think very noticeable compared to the Gretsch. Things like the finish on the frets, the way the neck just feels in your hands, and the playability. It's definitely a noticeably well-made, well-finished instrument. So the Gretsch, again, for the price, I think it's still a very well-made instrument. I haven't really had noticeable issues that have frustrated me and made me be like, oh God, I really wish I had the more expensive one. There's nothing on it that, I feel like, oh man, I wish it was better quality. There's definitely some characteristics about it, like the cutaway and things like that I wish it had a cutaway or, pickup or something. But, there's nothing build quality that's a deal breaker for me, especially with the price difference. You do notice, though, on the Gretsch, it definitely, picking up one versus the other, you could probably tell which one is the less expensive one. I don't know for sure, but I would think the tuners maybe and some of the hardware is probably a little bit better on the National. The tuning stability on it isn't terrible. The National is probably better with that, and I think the one issue I talked about this in my other video when I focused on the Gretsch. I do have an issue every now and then where one of the strings keeps breaking much sooner, and I don't really have an issue breaking strings lately, and I think it might just be because I'm swapping tunings and stuff all the time on it. That might be an issue, but there might be a setup issue in it too that might be a problem. And again, this is my specific one. If you get one of these, it probably won't have that. And I'm sure I talk about this all the time. I really need to just do it though. I probably should just take it to a tech at some point and get it set up. But, I just kind of do as much as I can on my own, and that could probably solve it too. Overall, still, a great instrument that I think would serve you well for whatever purpose you wanted. The build quality and stuff, it's noticeably less than that of the National, in my opinion, but it doesn't take away anything from your ability to play this instrument and play it really well and to your highest ability. There's one other thing I will say about the Gretsch. This is not a knock on this instrument at all, but this is my fault. The resonator cone I did replace, and I'll try to remember to put it somewhere which one I replaced it with. I don't know necessarily if that made an impact on the sound. This was so many years ago. I was just happy that I was able to play it again, but I screwed it up because I took the cover off and was trying to palm mute. It actually bent the cone to where I couldn't play it, so I had to replace it. So that was kind of scary because I thought I ruined the guitar, but you can buy replacement cones. It's not a Gretsch cone that I got. So I don't know if that, when I get to the sound demo, that might make a difference in other than a standard Gretsch, but I personally don't remember there being that much of a noticeable difference. I was just happy to be able to play it again. Some of the spec differences, I'm not going to go over line by line what the specs are of each one, but the differences overall in the two, the biggest things I notice, National, they focus on these resonators, so you have a lot more customizable options. They just make more models of them. This one's really cool because it has the cutaway option. There's pickup options as well. They do have a lot more options for the wood versus the metal, different types of materials, and then the tricones and single cones, whereas the Gretsch, there's way less options. So that's a big plus for a company like National that focuses on these things. Big differences overall, though. Nut width on this guitar and the neck, I want to say it's like 1.875, something like that. It's very noticeable if you're used to playing like me, like an electric guitar or a just like more modern guitars in general. They usually have smaller nut widths, so it's noticeable, and it's definitely something that I wish I could change about this guitar, to be honest, because I think it does sometimes impact me playing with it. Being like a steel string guitar, like it's going to be a little bit harder to play just in general than like a really nice setup electric guitar. You know, it's still a beefy acoustic guitar with steel strings. It's noticeable to me, but might not be to you. And then also this is something that not all their guitars have, it's just this one, but the slotted headstock, it looks really cool, but I'm personally not really a fan just because it's a different restringing process. To me, it's kind of annoying, and I didn't realize that till I actually owned one, and I owned a guitar with it that I don't really like that. Like the restringing, I want to be as quick and seamless as possible, and to have to like have a different process with it's kind of frustrating, but that's my own thing. The Gretsch is nice because it has more typical modern style tuners. So going back to the Gretsch for the some of the specs, what you see is what you get mostly with these guitars. Like there's not really that many options because this is not, you know, the main thing that they do. So I really wish it had a cutaway, but you're kind of limited with your options here. Nut width is definitely smaller. It's more, I think 1.75. It might even be a little smaller than that, so it's much more comparable to my other guitars and more modern guitars. It's just a little bit more comfortable. I forgot to mention this with the National, but the neck carve, it's kind of like a V on the Gretsch, which is really nice. The neck shape is really nice on this guitar. And the National, it's a bit more of like a C shape, but it's a chunky C. String spacing is a little smaller than on the National, but it's for finger picking, it still feels really nice. I really like it. And it has like the, you know, other style of tuner that I'm more typically used to. I can't remember the name. This one's just much more convenient for me just because I'm used to it. But if you're used to the slotted, that's not going to be a problem. But definitely keep that in mind if you've never had the slotted before. It is a little bit different of a stringing process. The sound differences, I'm going to do some demos trying to play as consistently as possible in each one with the same mic setups and everything, just to give you an idea. But again, these are very different in terms of the tricone versus the single cone. There's plenty of other things that might be impacting the sound as well, and just my general ability. Just keep that in mind. It's not, you know, it's not a perfect comparison one to the other. will just say too, as far as resonators go, this might offend some people, but I don't think they sound particularly expensive, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, they have a purpose, they have a function, and the reason they're set up this way is for the volume to project. And the tricone versus single cone, they do it in different ways, but they're not necessarily meant to have these super sophisticated, intricate sounds. What's really cool that comes out, the different harmonics and overtones, reverberations and stuff, that is a side effect of the projecting system, but it's meant to just project and be loud. What I'm getting to with that is, I don't think that you could spend endless amounts of money, and I don't think spending more money gets you a better sound with these instruments. There might be other types of guitars where that's the case, but in my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think that the lower cost models capture everything you would want out of a resonator sound that the expensive models do. However, if you're, the Gretsch, if the National can give you that, different customizable options or it just has a style that fits you better, and it's a better, setup and style for you, you might end up liking the guitar and playing it better because of that, quote unquote. I'm very hesitant to say that, but it might just fit you better. The setup, the specs, the feel, the neck, things like that. Certain guitars fit different people. So you might be able, if the guitar is really, speaks to you, you're probably going to sound better on it. My overall recommendation would be to, obviously, if you can, try to play them in person. But if you can't, which is probably why you're watching this video, if you're someone you're planning to play resonators a lot, or it's your main thing, it's going to be the guitar that you play the majority of the time, I think if you have the money, it's worth it to go for something like a National that'll get you more customizable options, just a better overall build quality. However, if you're someone who's, you play it every now and then, or you're just starting out with it, you're a beginner, or you're just getting into it, you're not really sure if the resonator's for you, or it's going to just be a little bit like a side quest for guitar, definitely the Gretsch I think is worth it. But I think it's suitable for, anybody from you've never picked up a guitar ever in your life to someone who's played for, 30 years or something. I think it can be a main instrument if you want it to be. I think they're really great instruments for the money. And, but there's obviously reasons why the National is great. In my earlier years of getting into playing the resonator, I had been influenced by all these musicians that had played National. So it was kind of like a rite of passage or something for me and I wanted to give back and support the, iconic brand there. But, that's just a personal thing. So again, I think they're both amazing instruments, and I think you'll be happy with whichever one that you choose. All right, thanks for watching. I hope that video was helpful. If you did like the video, it'd be great if you could give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing. Thank you.